Welcome back to Why Not with Siv Shen. To do things a little differently this time, my buddy Arvind and I will be co-hosting today's episode. So, not just that, we also have a super special guest. Before I reveal to you who our guest is, I would like to introduce Arvind to our show. Arvind has a master's in industrial engineering from WSU. Arvind and I go way back. We used to work as lean specialists at Wichita at Johnson Controls. Arvind played an integral role in the lean journey at Wichita, and he has now taken up a well-deserved leadership role at Hunter Douglas and is based out of Colorado. Welcome to the show, Arvind.
Thank you, Siva, for the awesome introduction. Glad to be here and to join your episode, and also it's good to see Erik again here.
100%. You revealed the mystery already, but joining us on our podcast today is someone who profoundly influenced our understanding, both Arvind and I's understanding of lean and servant leadership. With a journey spanning over 20 years in manufacturing and lean, Erik has held several leadership roles in Fortune 500 companies like Johnson Controls and GE. Erik is a true servant leader and always led through example. He has spearheaded multiple lean transformations across the different sites he's been a part of. Erik is one of those leaders who can influence everyone from an hourly operator all the way to the vice presidents and to the CEOs of a company. And I personally admire that most about Erik. Both Arvind and I used to work for Erik at one point, and he played an integral role in shaping our careers and understanding of lean. So we figured if we're talking about lean and servant leadership, who better to go to than Erik? Welcome to the show, Erik.
You guys are too kind, man. You got me. That was really, really kind words. And I'm super excited to be a part of this. And I really thank you guys for taking the time to think about me in that way. So, and I got to go ahead and tell you, man, before we even start that, I learned from you guys too. So I hope you know that. So well, I think you know that, right?
No, I think that's servant leadership right there, right?
There we exactly go. Right? That's the start.
So before we get in, I have a question for you. Do you miss us, Erik?
I do. I miss you guys. 100%. I got to tell you, it's interesting because when you really focus on people that are like yourselves, right? I'm able to kind of give you some examples, show you a few things, and then you guys are off and running, trying it, right? And then you guys would come back, and the two of you would talk about what you did well and didn't do well, right? You may or may not come back to me and ask for some more support, but you guys always seem to take a task and want to take it further, right? And to me, there's nothing more powerful than that, right? The more people you get involved, the better, because then you guys are here now doing what you're doing, and you're spreading the word, right? So, I do miss you guys. 100%. I was tickled. I told my wife when you guys reached out, I was like, oh, I got to do this, right? So, hopefully, I hold my own here.
No, 100%. And those were true words. You've always inspired us. And
that's awesome.
And as we start, I want to start with where your lean journey started, because I was going through, and you've told us this before too. So you did environmental science and geography at Iowa, and then you did engineering at NCSU.
And at one point, I remember at one point, Erik, you mentioned you were with the trucking company, if I can't.
Yeah. So I think there's a question there, right? So you want to understand where things started for me with my lean journey. Yeah. So and look, you know me, I'm not a talker, right? So you got to cue me on if I'm talking too much. But I got to tell you, my first instance with lean, I didn't even know what it was. Like I was just working in that environment, and so I started putting things together. I was like, what is that? And I didn't realize because. So, for example, I worked with Pepsi, right? And I started in the warehouse, and so I learned real quickly like how to load trucks and and then eventually, how to load them better. And then I didn't understand why there was a stack of pallets there on a yellow painted line. I didn't understand that, right? And then as my career went on, I started thinking back, going, "Oh my God, I know why Pepsi did that." Right? Because that was the specific pallets for the front of the truck. If you grab the other pallets, they're too long, right? So I was practicing the visual management and lean before I even knew what I was actually doing. This is back in the 90s, right? And I've got plenty of examples with that. I worked for Miller Lite Coastal, did the same thing. I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Every one of these companies, DHL Logistics. So every one of these companies, like, they had lean foundations, and they didn't pull you in an office and say, "Okay, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to go do lean today." It was already embedded in what they did. And so I was kind of like learning on the fly, right? So so tying back to that, you're right. I did have an earlier career that was outside of GE, right? And it was outside of Johnson Controls. I would say that the before GE, all the stuff I learned in 10 years really helped me understand like a lot more now through my career. So a lot of those roles that I told you, Pepsi, Miller Lite, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, all these different jobs I had, they were all front facing with customers, every one of them. And I learned so much by, like, I used to deliver to customers. I used to take a lot of their complaints. So I see from the customer's eyes what they're expecting. And so when it was an easy transition, when I went to, I would say more corporate world with GE and engineering and lean, I was able to take a lot of the stuff I learned in the beginning of my career and translate that. So I understand a lot more, I'd say, because of my previous roles before going on board with GE. So
makes sense. Wow.
That's very interesting, Erik, and also inspiring. And to your point, at least in my opinion, lean, we see it more as a cultural thing within an organization rather than it just being a department, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So, being established in every level, so the organization kind of drives everyone to, be aligned and have that thought of what can I do better? What can we, do better, and make sure that our goals are all aligned, and kind of falling back onto one of the key principles of Hoshin too, right? Make sure the organization is aligned from a lean standpoint. So, in my opinion, lean's definitely a cultural thing that's super beneficial to industries. But what does lean mean to you in this instance?
So that's a great question. And look, I got to tell you, there's so many definitions of what lean is, right? And I think you hit on it, right? And I know you did. You talked about, like, I would say respect for people and continuous improvement. I think both of those things are foundational for having a good lean culture, right? So what I highlight, and I always talk about respect for people, and that's always a topic where, I think sometimes people get that confused. It can be, for me, when I talk about respect for people, I talk about, okay, so where is the value being created? What's your value? What's your business, and what are you in business for? What's the value you're creating for your customer? And then who's on the front line creating that value, right? If we do not provide those folks, the people on the front line, with the tools to be successful, we failed.
Absolutely.
We failed. And I feel horrible about it. I used to feel horrible when I was leading a business at one of my companies. I had a bunch of people working for me, and I felt horrible when they had to work on Saturday and Sunday. Horrible. Now, I'm sure there was a few that didn't mind working on Saturday and Sunday, but there was a lot of people that they'd rather spend time with their family. They'd rather watch their kids play baseball, right? They'd rather go see their grandkids, So lean to me is more respect for people, making sure you're creating the value, you're supporting the people that are creating the value and actually touching the product, touching the value, and then also making sure that you're touching on continuous improvement, right? So you're literally continuously improving your value to your customer. You're reducing the amount of waste, and you're increasing the value to that customer, right? So I keep it as simple as that.
Right.
That is so well put.
And to your point, Erik, on that, on respect for people, I think empowering plays a huge part in that as well. Empowering people lean and things they do day to day. And I remember, Erik, back when we were working together, you mentioned to me on this term called I think it's called the first follower, when you get someone
Yeah.
else interested in lean, right?
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
that definitely rings a bell for
Yeah.
me, and I think that plays a huge part of the more people get involved on the journey of lean within an organization,
Yeah.
it makes it much easier to create that transition on being
Yep.
better and kind of
Yeah.
at the end of the day improving the overall environment.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, and just I might say I'm very impressed with the two of you guys and how far along you guys have come. I got to throw that in there again. This is great. You guys are. You can have me on anytime you want, man. This is
We
good
truly
stuff.
appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess kind of gearing towards the next question on that is,
Yeah.
if not lean, Erik, what would you have done?
So, okay, so that's a great thing. So remember, I had all these jobs, all customer facing jobs. I mean, I gotta tell you, could you imagine wearing a suit, right? And you're showing up at work at 7 a.m. and it's about 95 degrees out, and you're literally working, renting cars to people, okay? And someone comes in and starts yelling at you, right? And then you have to go outside and wash the car, right? Then you have to go get them in the car, teach them the rules, get them to try to buy some insurance, whatever you're going to do, mark it up, right? You got to get some money on it, right? Get some add-ons, right? And then on top of that, all with taking a lot of anger and frustration comes out to you. So the reason why I say that is, to answer your question, if not lean, and not taking that experience in the beginning of my first 10 years of my career, I really enjoyed operations just in general, right? So I really love leading people. And a lot of people ask me like, hey, how come you never went on to be a plant executive and run big plants and stuff? I just think that I found my place where I was at the piece where I had a business leader role within a company. I had 300 shop folks working for me with a staff of 10. And that was about as big as I wanted to ever go, right? So that was a mini business leader, so to speak, role that I learned a lot from. So I would say, just to say, anything I can do from an operational standpoint to help our customer. I would probably be more in operations, right? So taking that lean experience and just going back into ops and just taking all that knowledge that I have and try to, improve value for our customer. Right. You an answer, right? So you asked me a question, I gave you an answer. I got to tell you, I got to strike that for a second, guys. Here's the deal. I would love to be somewhere on the beach selling surfboards. That's really what I'd want to do. Okay. So let's be real. Okay. I want to be able to make my own surfboards and sell them. Okay. That's what I'd love to do. And maybe have a food truck right next to it. Right. So no, that's really the answer. Okay.
Why is it so important to do Gemba though?
I got to tell you, so if you're problem solving, right, you need evidence.
Yep.
Right. And a lot of times, and you guys know this, when we go out to a place where we worked before and a machine was down, right? I don't know if we were, you'd sit in a conference room, you'd hear people, oh yeah, it's down. You didn't hear the banging anymore, right? Why is it down? Oh, well, they got the thing over here, it just doesn't work, and the maintenance didn't get this done. But you never, where's your evidence, right? So I think that to me is the most important, regardless of anything, is you got to get out there to see what's going on for yourself, right? And I also think that you got to be careful in the Gemba too, because just because you're a senior leader in the organization doesn't give you the rank to say, okay, I can go out there now and just start asking questions, right? It's how you're asking the questions and why are you asking the questions? Why are you out there? What are you observing, right? So you need to know what you're observing, what questions you're going to ask, because the last thing you want to do is go out there and really hammer on people, right? You kind of want to learn, right? And that ties back to the servant leadership piece of this, right? Is really, really understanding your role as a leader is to try to want to have other people. You want to put other people before yourself, right? And you're trying to really, the goal is to try to create a more, I would say, just and caring environment, so to speak, right? And so to answer your question, there's several things, but you got to have the evidence, and where you get the evidence is go see it with your eyes. And any type of problem solving you're doing, whether you're doing daily management, whether you're doing 5 why problem solving, whether you're doing A3 problem solving, whether you're doing a Kaizen, or whether you're doing Hoshin Kanri, you want to see it for yourself. So that's why you go to Gemba.
100%.
Absolutely.
And even while we're doing the Gemba, I've seen how you interact with operators. You make them feel so comfortable, like they're buddies from outside of work. And then they're just so casual, and then they're just being so honest with you.
That's where I learned the Erik fist bump from, you know?
Yeah, no, and honestly, no, guys, I appreciate that, because that's key. And I got to tell you, like for me, I've had, you know how many people I've had in my career tell me that I need to like back off on my energy. Hey, you got a lot of energy, man. You need to harness that. But then I'm not being the, I would say, genuine Erik, right? You want everything I have to offer. Like don't take me being authentic away, right? So, and I appreciate you guys recognize that, because that's important to connect with those operators, whether it's a fist bump or whether it's like, hey, you're not just down there just to get what you want from them. You have to like ask a couple questions that have nothing to do with what's, just say, hey, I've never seen you before. What's your name? Oh, my name's Mike. Okay, cool. I'm Erik. Hey, here's what I'm here for. And like, oh, you are? Wow, I didn't know you were. Yeah, I'm here now. And you just have a conversation. And then, man, then they open up and say, man, it'd really be nice if we had this. And you're like, oh, really? Why is that? And then you just start that conversation, right? And you're not just a ghost. You go down there, you actually treat people with respect. You talk to them, you engage with them. You don't just come down there and just start, why are you doing that? Why didn't you do it this way? Let's have it this way. Why wouldn't you put 15 of these here instead of one? Nobody.
100%. 100%. So there's instances where you're collecting data when you're doing something lean, right? So So question for you. So what would you give more preference to? Would it be the data that the computer is showing, or the data that the operator is presenting?
So you would hope that they're the same. Unfortunately, they're not. So you do like an MSA. You collect the data from the system and you collect what's really happening, right? I think, look, it depends on how valid your data system is, right? So I personally would pull data, and then I would kind of try to build it with the operators to see if it matches up, if that makes sense, right? But I'd rather see it for myself. You don't know how many times I've gone into shops, and I do work with suppliers now, right? So when I go into shops, and even our own, I noticed that parts, right? And they're so detailed. And I'm like, how old is this Pareto? It took him like 2 weeks to get the data. And then by that time, it's too late, right? So you know how many times I've actually made recommendations that just collect the data on the fly. Like if you're an operator and you have an error on something, just track it right here. And I show them how to do a manual Pareto. You guys know that. We've done that on the floor. Draw a manual Pareto, have them come up, and then you check it every day to see how many's grown on there. Then you say, okay, what can we do about this? So to me, I like hands, paper, pencil, talking to the operators as much as you can.
Old school.
Right now, look, data is now starting to get better, right? So it depends on like I said, it depends on the data source. But
100%.
Or hey, Steve, take the data sheet and go to the operator and say, hey, it's saying this. Do you believe this? No, that's not true. Let me show you. Oh, okay.
That's even better. 100%. Yep.
That's awesome. So I guess, Erik, getting on to the next topic here on how lean has influenced way of life, right? Personally, for me, before joining Johnson Controls, it was more, classroom setting and green belts and stuff like that. And kind of, when I started working at Johnson Controls and with the manufacturing engineering team, my focus was primarily on assembly lines, sustaining. And I think there was an opportunity when you were working on a logistics supply chain project and you invited me to be part of that. And that's kind of my first footstep onto lean. And that's where I got hooked on and said, you know what, this is amazing. And with the added energy, it just, I guess, kept me going, and it will continue. Right.
Yeah.
And ever since, I will say that other than I love what I do, I will do lean for the rest of my life, I hope. And it has definitely played a huge role in pivoting my life towards a positive direction. And when I say that lean, the overall idea of lean, besides empowering, and it's also the journey of continuous improvement, right? So how do we, project to continuously improvement in our day-to-day and our personal life. And one of the things that really I go by of is to be the best version of yourself through whatever method you think is applicable. And for me, a huge part of that is being the best version through physical fitness, personal development, and also having a good work-life balance. And that's kind of the things I do, and for example, this morning, simple day-to-day activities while making coffee, you turn on the microwave, a minute in the microwave. And while that's running, I was getting other things ready. I was getting my socks ready. I was getting my bags ready. And when all that was done, my coffee was ready. So I think it definitely changes the way you look at life, and even simple things like making a coffee, definitely changes your life in a positive way. But how do you think lean has influenced the way you look at life?
Yeah, look, that's a thank you for explaining what your thoughts were on it and how it impacted you. I would say, I have similar examples, right, of things that I take. So what I really liked about what you said is how you talked about it's not just about where you work, right? It's also about like how you better your community, you better yourself, right? So and I think that's key, right, to all this. So I would say lean in general and the respect for people, peace, and continuous improvement. It's just something that now becomes more natural in my everyday life. So it's just I would tell you that it is a good balance though. Like you said, it's like even though I may be doing really good things at work with lean and respect for people and continuous improvement, sometimes when that goes up, right, things at home drop a little bit, right? So you hit on that too, which is that work-life balance piece, which is important because I want to be just as good as work as I am at home. And so that's something that I think everybody has to understand. So to me, it's to open my eyes to say, really, can I have that balance of doing great things at work and also great things at home? And that's kind of what lean has brought to me. Is like, I'm like, okay, well, look, I try to be as respectful as I can to people that I interact with every day, regardless if it's lean or not. I mean, it's just who I am. Servant leadership wise, right? I'm going to go into that real quick, guys, because it's important to me. Because here's the thing. You guys have heard of Robert Greenleaf, right? So if you haven't, Robert Greenleaf, The Servant as a Leader, he wrote a book in 1970.
Okay.
And he's basically grandfather of what we're calling modern day servant leadership. Right. So he has a lot of principles. There's like, I think it started out with 5 principles. Now it's like went to 7, then 10. He's no longer with us. He was born in 1908. I think he passed away in 1990. But the point of the story is there's a few things that render with me, right? Is focusing on the whole, right? So not just one thing, it's focused on everybody. Put people first, creating an inclusive environment, listening intently. So it's not just if you ever talk to somebody and they're saying yes to you before they're not even really listening to you. So you really have to put your thoughts behind that and make sure you're listening to people, you understand it, and you give feedback if they need it. And then serve with humility. So although you asked me a question about lean and how it's impacted me, I always go back to I've been fortunate that I've had a lot of great leaders, right? I can name them. I know, and I'm quite good friends with a lot of my old bosses. I've been fortunate that they've allowed me to grow and make some failures, and they've also coached me. And I would say I've been very lucky to have mostly servant leaders guide me through my career, right? And sometimes you can't do that, right? You can't really choose your boss because you don't know how long they're going to be around, right? So just, I don't know, hopefully that kind of gets to what you're saying, Arvind. But to me, I'm pretty passionate about making sure that I do put other people before myself, and I'm building them up all the time. And I think that's inside and outside of work.
So you were speaking when you spoke about servant leadership. One of the things that you mentioned was it's important to let the member of your team go make their own mistakes.
Yes.
I think you gave us a lot of that opportunity too. It really defined us, and it helped us grow in a big way.
Yeah. I felt so, guys. I felt like when you guys were working for me, that I did give you guys some rope, right? And I thought I'd give you enough to go get busy, right? And it's good to hear that you guys feel that way. and Arvind, you talked earlier about, I had you a part of an event one time, and that's what you got hooked, right? And Siva, I seem to remember that we tried to get him on full time, right? We almost got him. Then he went and went another route for a little while, and he came back to us, didn't he? So glad to see that you're growing. So it's good.
100%. Do you think it's important for someone to be a servant leader? Like, my question to you would be first, have you had both kinds of leaders, like servant leaders and not so servant leaders? Did that influence you?
Yeah. So I got to tell you, my first 10 years, I've had probably 5 jobs, and I've had 4 traditional leaders. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And one servant leader and four traditional leaders. Right. So, and yeah, it did. It was like, as much fun as I had working at some of those companies, it was tough because I didn't really have a voice. It was like, you do this, you got to do that. Why? Just do it. Right. So like, that's just how it was when I first started my career. And I think I wanted more. I wanted to see what else was out there. And then I finally got on with somebody and I saw the light. I was like, oh, wow, these guys get it, right? These guys giving me some leash here. This is awesome. So I think, that's part of where I did learn a lot about the traditional ways of management. And so I wouldn't even call it traditional leadership. I call it traditional management. And then servant leadership is completely different. It's like, traditional is more like, what are you gonna do for me today? And then servant leadership is more like, hey, how can I help you be successful? How can I help achieve the target you need to get? Right. So totally different mindsets. So
100%. Have you always been a servant leader, or did you have a journey where you truly started understanding?
No. When I first was like a supervisor within one of the companies I was working for, I would probably say, because I learned from a supervisor that was not a servant leader, and I was new at being a supervisor, so I was taking on what he was, and I learned by the hourly folks that I work for taught me real well. Like, hey, it's just what you're doing is not going to fly with us. You're going to need to be a little bit more flexible, right? And so, and that's really when I had the aha moment. It was like, all right, I got to think about this differently, right? I have good intentions, but I'm getting people that are calling out early or leaving late because they just didn't like the environment. So I had to pull them in and talk to them and say, what's going on? And they said, well, we thought you were going to be a little bit different than the last person. And then I said, explain to me. And they said, well, you're always coming around when you need something. How about come out here when you don't need something? And I'm like, man, that's a pretty good suggestion, right? And I didn't even have a suggestion box. That was like free, right? So that's kind of where the bell went off in my head, the light bulb went off. And so I need to think differently. And really, truly, it was one of my first or second roles within, my company. I was on a rotational program, and I learned real quick that I needed.
Wow. No, that's actually really good. Because you know why? When you used to be our leader, and I've told you this before too, I used to be very happy coming into work. And
you told me that. And I used to love coming into work when we had that little daily management in the office.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I used to think, I would totally do anything Erik puts me on. I really wanted to give my best.
Yeah, no, and I could tell that all of you guys, and that's what made it. That's how this works. The synergy, right? That's servant leadership, giving you guys what you need, and yet I'm learning from you guys, and I'm able to say, okay, these guys got it, and I can focus on folks that maybe aren't in the space where you guys are, right? They're not as open-minded to some of the change that we were trying to do, right? So that allowed me to spread wings too. So just don't forget that, right? So you guys helped me out.
And on that point, Erik, I think simple questions engaging with the folks on the floor, like, hey, how was your day? That goes a long way for them. It maybe takes less than 10 seconds, but the impact that it creates, you just never know how much it can better somebody's day and create that impression, So
to that point, think about this. Like, say you need to go to the floor because you need something from somebody, right? Mm-hmm. And you need it like that. You need it right away, right? And sometimes I'd have to go down and not get what I needed, but just to build that relationship real quick. But I'd go down the next day and ask so the first day I go down just to meet them. And then it was tough because I needed the answers. I needed stuff. but I would at least give it a day, and it was tough. I had to go back and say I didn't get something, but I'll get it tomorrow. And then when I explained to my leader what I was trying to do, they're like, "Oh, that's a really good approach." I was like, "Yeah, I just didn't want to come down there and just ask them to give me what I needed. I wanted to make sure that I was genuine, right? So being a genuine leader. So
absolutely
can't do it all the time, but you try, right?"
100%.
And a big part of that is also like having the overall positive energy. I know we talked about this in some of our previous conversation on having contagious energy that we can pass on to somebody else, not necessarily to just your team member, but to people in general. And that kind of brings up my next question. And I know I've asked you this before, but I'm going to ask you again.
Hopefully I answered the same way.
That's the test, right? So, a huge part of lean, as I mentioned, is getting people engaged with lean, and having that right energy plays a huge role in that. So how do we maintain the same level of energy on the days that you because not all days are going to be the same, right? So what's the secret on maintaining the same level of energy?
What's the sauce? What's the secret sauce?
Yeah. So I like that. And you get bonus points because you have a Yankees hat up hanging on the wall. By the way. I would say, look, because it's a grind, right? You guys know days would be good, days would be off, and then so being genuine, honestly, like don't change your style, right? Really, that is like if you have. I mean, what I mean is, hold on, you have to flex your leadership style at times. What I'm saying is, like, just because you're not having a stellar day from a lean perspective, don't go changing anything. Just learn from it. Like what happened, right? Like what like it's called reflection. You guys know that, right? Like at the end of the day, what didn't go well? List the 3 or 4 things on the paper, right? Like what didn't go well today, what went well. And to me, I would take that I'd really sit back and say, why did I not hit the things I wanted to do today? And I'd have a reason for them, right? And so to me, that really is how I would say, I just because everyone keeps saying I have so much energy. Like how do you stay so energetic all the time? And I think some of that is inherent in who I am because that's the way I was born and raised, and I'm just an energetic person. But the same token, I try not to you can read me like a book sometimes, right? Like you can tell if I'm not bouncing off the wall, someone's like, "Hey man, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not bouncing off the wall today, but everything's cool." Right. So I think at the end of the day, the bottom line is the secret. I don't know if it's a secret sauce, but it's just being consistent and just being persistent. Don't give up. Just try to keep a smile on your face when you're walking around people that work for you. Try to keep a smile on your face. Don't let them read you. It's okay to be true with them. "Hey, you having a good day?" It's a little off. Why? Here's why. Man, let's go fix that. So just stay positive. And sometimes it's a challenge. Stay as positive as you can, even though maybe your day is not as positive. So be my response to you guys.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to take that. I've always thought about it. I've always thought, man, I'm so down. But if Erik had been here, he would have been so up. And he would have made the team. So I think about it a lot. And then when I'm talking to my team, I'll just put all the bad stuff behind and then bring that positivity.
It's not easy though, right? Because both of you guys, I've seen you tonight, and I can just when you talk, you have this. Not just tonight. Every time I see you guys, you always have a smile on your face. You're always like eager to listen or talk, and that's what it is. That's what it is on the floor. That you have to just maintain that same energy and motivation regardless, because if you come in like, "Oh shucks," and you're kicking a rock down the street, right? People are gonna be like, "Oh man, he's down," man, and then that just brings everybody down, right? So
energy is contagious,
It is. It goes, energy is contagious, but it's also, when you're not, it's the same way. So you just got to try to find the humor the best you can. You got to try to relate to people the best you can when you're not having a good day. And you got to be genuine when you're down there. If you're asking people questions, be genuine. That's all. Yeah. Be honest with them.
So, sir, interesting. So another question I had was when you're leading a team, right? And then you have different projects that you're working on as a leader.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me how involved should we be as a leader in a project that we've delegated? Should we be? I've never realized what the right percentage is. Like,
so, like when I was over you guys, right, and I was your leader, and there were certain things that needed to be done. We had 4 or 5 people, I believe. I kind of had to get to know you first, right? And if I'm working with you, I know what your styles are. I know what your strengths and weaknesses are, right? We've talked about them, right? So I think number one, make sure you understand the employee, because what I may be asking Arvind to do is probably not the same way you would do it, right? So number one is understanding who you're dealing with and the background that they have, like, and what is their gap, what are their gaps, right? And their strengths and weaknesses. And so when you have that, the check-in would be, for example, with you, I would give you something and I would set up a weekly, right, with you to see where progress is. I don't know if I could tell you, well, for me, it's always set up a weekly. I usually let the person that's running the project set time up with me, because that shows initiative. Hey, I'll move my stuff the best I can to accommodate your schedule. And I would meet with that person. If you need to have more regular sessions, you'll be able to tell, because you need to make sure that they have for example, I'd say, hey, what's your plan for the first week? Well, I really want to get to this point. So then we would meet and you would talk to me about how far you got. And if you didn't get as far as you wanted to, you would say, hey, we talk reflection. So hey, see about what held you up? Was it me? Did I not give you something? No. Here's what happened. I needed this. Hey, so how do we figure that out next time so that you don't lose a day? Right. So I think that's the conversation is, you have maybe 4 or 5 people working for you, maybe 10. You have to be able to juggle those sessions. Right. So whether it's them setting up a formal meeting with you, or you having a style where they have a session where you just approach and you listen in. Right. So it just depends on the style of the employee that you're working with, so to speak. If that makes sense.
No, it does. It does.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I can go on. So one other question. So I've noticed you've led several different teams. You've held different leadership positions, manager, senior manager, director, whatnot. But I've always noticed you take pride in calling yourself a leader and not really behind those titles. Why? What's that perspective?
I think if I remember this right, even Eric's office had lean leader instead of director.
Yeah. Okay. And so I'm glad you guys brought that up, because look, don't get me wrong, right? People title chase, man. I'm just going to be honest, you guys. Don't have me on this thing if you don't want me to be honest. Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to have the right financial amount behind their work effort, right? So to me, I look at you and I say, you're a lean leader. I look at Arvind, lean leader. Like, it's in my nature to say, I don't know. I don't chase the title. As a matter of fact, I've probably got a few talks from people saying that I probably needed to put my title up on and I just I've never been in that dogfight to say or go, hey, but I'm a senior director in the business. And I just love I attribute it to servant leadership, man. Think about it, right? Like, you guys are laughing about it, but at the end of the day, you're like, damn, he was our boss and he had the same title as us. I think I even fought to have you guys I said, yeah, you're a lean specialist or whatever, but I want you to put lean leader as your role, right? Remember, we talked about that.
Yep.
We're all lean leaders, man.
100%.
I used to love walking out with you guys because I'd learned stuff from you guys. You were setting up daily management in Johnson Controls, right? And you were going out there, and so were you, Arvind. You guys had a lot of work you did, and I learned a lot from you guys. So, but the title to me, I'm not. Look, I'm going to tell you, the title to me is important, but I got to tell you, it's more about what people think of you. Like, if you didn't ask me to be on this and you asked somebody else, I would know my answer to how you guys felt about me as a leader, right?
Right.
So that's tribute to you guys asking me to be a part of this. So I'm very thankful and I'm grateful.
No, I think those are things that we learned, and those are seeds that you planted, and it's kind of taken root, and we are trying to. That's great. Imbibe and be those things. Yeah,
that's great because honestly, like, it's nice. It goes back to that first follower thing, where it's nice to hear you guys say that, and I know that you're not just saying it. I know you guys are practicing it. I believe both of you, right? I know you guys. So that to me makes everything I've done worth it. Like, any interaction I have with you guys or the time I've spent with you, that's all about the servant leadership. It's all about making you guys better, the best I can, because I don't know it all. And I'm hoping that you know a piece of something I don't know, you know the other piece that I don't know. And as a team, man, no, we're unstoppable, right? So that's what I would sum up servant leadership in a nutshell.
And
That's
I think
exactly what it's about.
that kind of rings a bell on one of the famous quotes: "Talent wins you games, but teamwork wins you championships."
Exactly.
Right?
100%, man. 100%. Yeah, I double down on that for sure.
So
Yeah.
as we go closer to the end of the session, I just want to
Yeah.
go off on a quick tangent.
That's fine.
So AI, right? Because Arvind and I have actually spoken about this a little bit. So we were wondering, bro, what if AI replaces us? And then we're here thinking, you know what? AI is trying to do the exact same thing us
Yeah.
as lean people are trying to do. So maybe it'll go hand in hand. What are your views on it?
I think there's a place for AI to help us make better decisions, right? But I think the human touch is always going to be necessary. I look, I got to be honest with you. I'm not as embedded in AI as most people probably are, right? And it's not for any other reason. The fact that I just haven't gone into that department yet and really dove into. I know enough about it. I've heard that as well. What you just said. I just think you're always gonna need that person just to give that human touch. I mean, you guys go out to dinner, right? And how many times have you seen somebody like a manager or leader or the owner of the place come by and they touch your table and ask how your meal was and all that stuff. I always see that as there's going to always be the need for folks that are genuine. Like, look, maybe 20, 30 years from now, things are different, but I think in the immediate future, I don't think things are going to change that much. But I think smart people like you guys are going to figure out how to mix those two. You're going to take the best of AI and the best of yourselves, and you're going to find a way to make that fit. That's what I believe. You guys are holding the torch. You guys are going to take it the next 40 years, 30 years. You guys are taking it to the next level, man. I'm in the twilight.
No.
100%, especially since lean being a culture. To your point, it needs
Right.
a driver to kind of drive that culture instead of it just being a system, right?
I'm sure that they can build that into AI somehow, but man, I haven't seen it yet. I'd love to see it demonstrated, but I think the human touch is always important, man. Nothing like a smiling face, right? And just some good conversation, right? Like
100%. 100%.
Where I am with it.
Yeah, I think my last question, Erik, is for those watching, right? Maybe there's leaders watching, or maybe there's lean enthusiasts watching us. If you had to give a piece of advice for them, or something that they should keep in the back of their head, what would it be?
To the leaders, like
leaders?
To senior leaders and just in general.
All people leaders.
Being honest and true and genuine. I live on that. Like being candid with being candid, but not like, you got to polish yourself a little bit, right? You're not, you don't want to be blunt, and you have to have some sort of, you got to be careful with what you say, but also be honest with what you mean, right? So I think being specific to people and being true to them and just letting them know the real situation. Because if you don't, and I would say I call it sugarcoating, then they're really never going to learn, right? So I just say, be yourself, be genuine, support what you're saying with facts if you can and data, right? The best you can. Hey, how did you know that? Well, I went and checked on the opera, and this is what they told me, and I observed it, right? Just get out there more. Be I would say, open to learnings yourself as a leader. Because if you're going out, and whether it's the floor or wherever you're going to Gemba, if you're not learning when you're out there, then it's probably not a successful trip to where you went and saw, right? You should be learning. Right. And I think from a leadership standpoint, I would tell the leaders out there, just make sure when you have an opportunity to go see where the value is being created, that you're respectful of the work that's being done, and you observe. And you observe first.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense?
That is very powerful. That is very powerful. Thank you. I mean, thank you so much for taking time out and talking to us today, Erik. And like we're big admirers. We try to imbibe some of the things that you've told us, and you've created a difference in us. And I'm also hoping those watching, maybe someone's will, they will turn a new leaf. Maybe somebody else watching will change the perspective on lean or leadership. And that's what this is all about. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, both of you guys. And look, you can be like the tool expert, right? All the lean tools. You can be so good at those, right? I mean, the best. You're the best at 5S. You're the best at any tool in the lean toolbook, right? But if you're not good with people,
tough,
man, it's not going anywhere. No one's gonna. I'm like, all right, yeah, okay, good, Eric, let's do this, and then you leave, and then nothing happens, right? So that I would double down on how you treat people, and the tools are easy. Those are easy. So that'd be another message to you guys.
Right? Yeah, 100%.
Anybody can pick up the tools, man. Come on. You guys are doing calculus and differential equations. The tools for lean are like adding 1 + 1 and 2 + 2. So
it's the culture that's the journey, right?
It's how you started it off, right? Exactly, man. That's it.
No, thank you so much, Eric. Truly appreciate it, and the lean journey continues for sure.
Yep, perfect. I hope to hear from you guys again. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay.